So hello fellow Earthlings, this is Earthling 6455463728, and society really only changes when people die. For example, when my grandmother died, definitely the dynamic of the household changed. When my grandfather died, the same thing, as in my mother could feel free to talk somewhat differently, and my uncles could feel freely to talk about things that they probably wouldn't be able to if my grandmother was alive, and they still had a certain amount of reverence for her, let's say. And people say also that even though it seems to us that Albert Einstein he came out with this amazing theory and that everybody must have accepted it, that wasn't the case until a lot of people who disagreed with his position, with his revelations, when they were dead, then things really took off for him, per se, and his ideas really gained traction. And, we can still see the case with respect to politics, where a lot of these powerful politicians, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, these people are really pretty old for the most part. So what happens when, people stop dying? Let's say we can do that. I used to think that, and I'm really drawing off for one example now to reverse my train of thought. I used to think that it might basically snuff out innovation in terms of whether or not things actually change, that we accept new ideas, and that might be a great filter, per se. If you want to take like a search for aliens kind of point of view to see why aren't there all these aliens out there, they suggest that there's a great filter that prevents civilizations from getting past a particular point. And I was thinking that, okay, if we happen to extend people's lifespans indefinitely, never mind the amount of space that there is on the planet, that would snuff out innovation, and we might not be able to advance as much as we would have if people just kept dying. The thing about it, though, is that maybe not, because in my example that I had in my mind is Madonna is still alive. She's still alive, and she is still performing. I think maybe she still might be going on tours, but she is not charting, the Billboard hits. She's not making hit songs as regularly, if at all, as she used to. It's a lot of younger people who are making these songs. So maybe it's just a question of people just no longer being as relevant as time passes on. Maybe it is not something that would hobble advancements in society if we were to cure death, for example. Of course, the problem is that as we age, we stop learning. We have a certain deck of habits that we have accumulated over time, and most of us, it's very difficult. Learning new things and gaining new habits and new skills, they're difficult. It's just that you don't really have much of a choice the younger you are. If you're a baby, you see everybody else walking, hey, you could crawl on your belly for a long time, but you just want to be like everybody else. If you are a young person, you see everybody else has all these houses and cars and whatever else. So in order to be able to get money, you have to learn a skill that people are going to pay you to perform. So you just have to. You don't really necessarily want to, as a younger person, but you have to. And so you do. And, depending on your ambition and your luck and whatever resources you have, you get into a particular rut, and as time passes, you are less likely to gain new skills as time passes, of course. But we can still see that if a younger person, let's say, comes out with a new method of doing something based on what is available with current technology, let's say, for example, iPhones, and you have a established company like Nokia, if your iPhone is much better than your Nokia, it doesn't matter if Nokia is still around. We were talking about extending human life, not the lives of companies. So you could have established companies that simply become defunct because they no longer can keep up with the technology that they might choose not to adopt. And that kind of thing is happening faster and faster, especially with respect to technology companies. The main way that Facebook, for example, has avoided becoming MySpace is by buying up Instagram and WhatsApp and making sure that they was in control of how those platforms progressed. And in the case of Snapchat, they just copied a lot of their features when Snapchat refused to sell. Of course, for now, the FAANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, they're still doing pretty well. But you can see how quickly, for example, Disney Plus, it's not a new company, but they were new to the whole streaming thing, and now they have like 79 million subscribers compared to 190 something that Netflix has. They almost have half of Netflix subscribers, and they've only been around for, is it just over a year or something like that? And this is whereas all the other streaming competitors that Netflix had, they just died. They didn't do that well. I mean, they didn't completely die. Hulu is still around, but it's owned by Disney. But we can see from these big companies, and going back to just regular human beings, if we were to become immortal, or at least extend our lifespan over a long period of time, there still is a significant threat of things being stuck in a rut as a result of older people holding on to the reins of ideas or of institutions, of companies, of countries, and so on. And we can see that even though a lot of people are still around, they are the Tom Hanks of the world, the Tom Cruises, the Will Smiths, all of the Chris's, we can see that even though these people are still around, they are not dominating the scene as much. But in a way, they are dominating more, because whereas before we would have just called certain people over the hill, like a Tom Cruise, for example, he is still there in action movies. He's not as big as he used to be. There are a lot more people that are out there. There perhaps are a lot of other ways that people can make things like movies or whatever else. But the control that many people, the consolidation, the buy-ups that used to happen, where the control was really just in the hands of a few people, it is still, things are changing. They are changing. They seem to be changing anyway. I might be wrong. Maybe it is that this is the existential threat when we do achieve some kind of life extension or immortality. Maybe it will suppress innovation for long periods of time in terms of, what people used to say were the Dark Ages, which I've seen written that they weren't really that dark. People did still retain some kind of knowledge and information and know-how. And overall, I guess that it isn't really as clear as I thought that it might have been when I was thinking up of my example of Madonna as to which side things will fall on. Undoubtedly, in some places, there will be very effective suppression of new ideas and new ways of looking at things, especially if resources are limited. But in other places, the old might go quietly into the night, for example, and innovation might continue even though people continue to live well past the time when they would have expired previously. I really don't know. I can't say. There's no path in my mind that leads to a particular answer. And I really wish that there were. And maybe I might revisit this topic again if I come up with a path forward that seems to make a logical sense.